Well, my doctor has told me that I am a plague upon humanity and cannot go to work today. So, in that spirit, I have decided to talk about a toy line that was a plague upon toy aisles for over a year, and that is Hasbro's Star Wars Forces of Destiny line. Now, in the run up to what I hope is a full recovery from whatever this is, I'm going to try and keep putting out videos between now and Star Wars Follies 14. They won't always be Star Wars themed like this one, but I'm hoping that I can knock a few out and everybody will get a kick out of them. These were low priority projects that I never got around to. And you might be wondering, why would you ever consider doing a video about Forces of Destiny? Well, when we saw them in the toy aisle, I immediately knew this is going to fail. And it has nothing to do with, them being targeted for girls. It has nothing to do with any of those gender politics that are going on in some of the other spaces right now. What it has to do with is toy history. If you look at these characters, and I'll show them to you in close-up, these are just 4 examples from the line. And I tried to get a varied group. I tried to get some of the female characters, one of the rarer male characters, because those were actually harder to find. So I of course, got Bespin Luke. I happened upon him. I found him. I thought I was going to have to get him, online. And then Chewbacca, who I'll have more to say about in a minute. But if you look at the human characters, you will notice that they are constructed in a similar way to Brave Star. And when I saw this in the toy store, when I was looking at them, I immediately knew this is never going to fly, because they have most of their clothes molded onto them, and they're in this larger, 12-inch scale, or nearly 12-inch, 10-inch. It's kind of like Brave Star in that way. These types of action figures, like whether you're talking about this or you're talking about Spiral Zone from the late 80s, they don't reach escape velocity for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they're too expensive because of their scale for kids to collect them all. Maybe it's because there are no vehicles for these characters to drive around in because they're too big. It's the same learning that it's the same learning that Kenner had in 1979 when they realized the larger format Star Wars figures are not doing as well as the smaller ones. And so they got rid of them. And, then they tried other scales with micro, and that didn't work. And they went back to 3 3/4 inch. And, now Hasbro's all over the map with, scales. And I know that I think Jack's Pacific is in there somewhere doing those shampoo bottle characters, which those are worth junk. You can tell that they really put their effort into these, much like Brave Star and much like Spiral Zone. I don't know why the toy industry keeps coming around every few decades and tries this scale out again, thinking, oh, people will change their minds. No. And because they were clearly targeted at girls and only girls, even though they were sold in the Star Wars aisle with everything else, I'm sure that didn't help the boys getting into them, because they're already doll size. They have some removable clothing and accessories, though the base figure is molded in clothes. And frankly, they look like Barbies. They have Barbie looking faces. They look somewhere between Barbies and Bratz. Luke Skywalker, he looks like Alita Battle Angel and Edward Cullen from Twilight had a love child. He's really freaky looking. They come with fully detailed accessories. They come with, nicely detailed clothing for the most part that's true to their outfits. I don't know anything about the Disney. I don't know if it was a webisode or a series of short animated garbage. I didn't watch any of that. I don't know anything about the show or web series they're tied to, and I don't really care. What I know is that these piled up on toy store shelves for the last 2 years, and I still see them now, and they can't clear them. I can't tell you how many Endor Leias with Wicket I've seen just lined up. And the really interesting observation about these from from any toy collector who's had any level of experience over the decades dealing with open toys versus, mint toys, you really need to just keep these in the box. And I say that because, and I'll show this to you in close-up, taking Princess Leia, for example, she's got a lot more hair in the back so that a little girl can style her hair or play with her hair than she would have in the Empire Strikes Back hairstyle. Well, if you, as a collector, take this out of the box, not only are you going to have to remove the doll and the blaster and R2-D2, but then suddenly that hair is just going to spill out, all over the place because she's literally got a plastic tie, kind of like the ones that hold tag tie, those tag attachments. She's got one of those running right through the back of her hair. I assume all that's going to spill out, or it's just going to start looking funky. And there's no way that will ever look, Empire Strikes Back accurate because it's this huge bun that's just sticking out of the back of her head. Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking with this line. I really don't. And I'm not going to go into all the features and all that kind of stuff. I get it. I get that they thought, oh, well, we'll have pack-in characters like R2 and Yoda and, Luke will be there and it'll be great. And no, there's just not enough interest at this scale because boys don't like, generally speaking, playing with dolls, and girls, generally speaking, they're already invested in other lines. They've already got other lines that they've collected into. Not just girls' lines necessarily, but and not just colored ponies, but they've got other stuff. I'm sure some of you out there are going to tell me, "Oh, my daughter loved this line," and that's great. I mean, that's great, but it has inherent limitations, and this scale always does, unless you are Barbie, unless you have that kind of legacy capital behind you that tells Mattel, yeah, we can make a scaled Jeep for Barbie and it'll sell. And we can make a scaled house for Barbie. Hasbro isn't even making play sets and vehicles for their 3 3/4 inch. They're not making them for their Black Series, really, except for very expensive, Luke and Landspeeder every now and then. Did you really think they were going to make anything for this line? I mean, no. Now, there is one standout, and I said I'd mention it, and that is Chewbacca. While he is somewhat cartoony, Chewbacca actually is really cool. He looks good. I wish that if the face sculpting had been different on the men, that they could have done a Han Solo to go with him. I think that would have been neat. Now, he is nowhere near tall enough, but his face sculpting is good. The flow of the hair on him makes the Power of the Force 2 12-inch Chewbacca look like, the garbage that it was. I mean, he really does look good as a standalone figure. And he would be the only one in this line that I'd be tempted to take out of the box. And plus he's got this nifty sound feature. See, that's cool. I really like that. So if I was going to do all this over again, I would have just gotten Chewbacca and walked away from the rest of the line. But as you can see, these characters do much better just sitting in the box. My grandmother years ago was a doll collector, and she would collect things like the Cher dolls and the Michael Jackson dolls, and she would always just keep them in the display boxes with the big, book cover flaps on the front, And when you think about it, it's like, well, yeah, because what are you going to do with Thriller Michael Jackson once he's out of the box? Nothing. He's just going to take up space, and then the box is going to take up space, and then you've just got these two disparate items floating around, and that's how this feels. That's how this feels. So anyway, yeah, that's my take on Star Wars Forces of Destiny. And it seems like the marketplace had a negative take as well because the line is canceled. So next up is hopefully going to be Star Wars Follies 14. There might be a few other videos in the middle, but yeah, I'm trying to get well. So thanks for watching this, and we'll see you on the next video.